Hi, this is Jack Slingerland, and I'm going to walk you through creating a Git-enabled WordPress plugin that can be automated and updated via a simple Git push with Kernl. So the first thing you need to have is a plugin. I have one in Git. It's called Test GitHub Plugin. It is the absolute simplest version of a plugin I can possibly have. All it has is the initial stanza that you put in WordPress plugins, and that's it. The next thing that we're going to do is go to Kernl because we need to have an initial version of our plugin in Kernl. So I'm going to start my free trial, and I will start from a brand new account. Okay, so now that I'm registered, after this, I will want to connect GitHub with my Kernl account. So I go to Continuous Deployment, and then I connect GitHub. All right, and it will sync my repositories over to Kernl, so I have a up-to-date list. After that, I need to create a container in Kernl to hold my plugin. So I go to Plugins, I hit plus, and we will call this Test GitHub Plugin. My slug is Test GitHub Plugin, and this is a test. Okay, so we'll save. So initially, all we do is we create the container. Now, what we're going to do is follow these basic installation instructions up here. So first, we download the plugin update check file. This is what Kernl uses to connect to Kernl, check for updates, and do all of that work. And we will also need to copy this code and paste it into our plugin. So I will copy that, open up VS Code, and I will drop that code in here. And obviously I do not have plugin update check in here yet, so I will get that really quick. It's going to be in downloads, and it will be in plugin update check. You can tell I've done this a handful of times because I have 4 different versions of it. So we will go to copy and paste into here and paste. Okay, so I have plugin update check 4, so I'm just going to go ahead and rename that real fast. Okay, so now we have the basic Kernl updater here. Okay, so this is the initial version of your plugin, and we want to make this Git enabled. So now what I'm going to do is go back to Kernl, and I can hide this installation code, and I am going to edit plugin, go to automatic deployment, and connect a repository. And you will find that your repositories are listed here. So I'm going to select Test GitHub Plugin. I'm going to use master because that's the only branch I have. And Kernl will attempt to connect to it. It gives you a little bit of information here. So the webhook's configured, the deploy key is configured, it knows what the current version is, but it says that we have no kernl.version, which is required, and our versions don't match because we don't have a kernl.version. So let's go ahead and create the first pass at our plugin. So what we do is we create a new file in here called kernl.version. This is the file that tells Kernl whether it should build your plugin or not. So right now my current version is 1.0.0, and if I put 1.0.0 here, when we push to GitHub, Kernl is going to see that these versions match, and it will not build it. So if I bumped this to 1.0.1 and left kernl.version at 1.0.0, it still wouldn't build it because it reads off kernl.version. So when kernl.version increments, it will then build it. So we're going to leave this at 1.0.0, and this is the bare bones version of Kernl and GitHub integration. So now that we have this, I'll go ahead and zip it up because you have to upload manually the first version that you have. And so we can just archive this, which creates a zip. If I can find the link, compress, there we go. All right, so we'll upload this first version manually. And this is 1.0.0. And we will browse and find our file. It is right here. Open, and save. Okay, so we have 1.0.0. Now, if I go ahead and save our changes, you can see we have the new kernel.version, the plugin update check, and then our other changes. So we'll go ahead and git add, git commit, -m, first GitHub commit, and git push, origin master. All right, so that goes out to GitHub. Now, if we refresh this page and we go to the bottom, Kernel will have picked up that build from Git, and it will say that there's no build required because our versions match. But let's say you want to do new release, and this is where it's exciting. So you go to Kernel and you make some change, whatever you want. Or you go to your plugin and you make some change. I'm just going to bump the version, so 1.0.1, and we'll change the version here as well and save. So super simple, didn't actually do much of anything. But now you add your changes, you commit, bump to version 1.0.1, and we push it. So now Kernel will catch that webhook from GitHub, and we'll give it a second to catch up. And if we reload that page, you can see we have a new version, and Kernel built it. So 201 means we created something, which is awesome. So now let's go ahead and see what happens if we add this plugin to the Kernel blog. So you can actually see the update as it happens. All right, so we're going to add this plugin. We will add the initial plugin that I created just so you can see like the first update. Okay, so we'll install now, activate, and now if we go to plugins, it says, hey, there's a new version available, so we'll update it. Okay, that's great. We're now on version 1.0.1. So let's go ahead and release another version of the plugin. Once again, doing something absolutely silly and releasing an update with no changes in it except the version change. So I bumped those to 1.0.2 in the plugin, and then 1.0.2 in kernel.version. We will make the change, 1.0.2, and we will push. Okay, if we wait a second, the GitHub will go ahead and send us a webhook. Kernel will catch it, process it, and release a new version, 1.0.2. You can also see the download happened for when we update it over here. And now we should be able to check for updates and see if we have another update. Kernel has some pretty aggressive caching, so sometimes you have to wait a minute. Kernel example plugin GitHub, so we're going to wait here. Oh, sorry, test GitHub plugin. I named it wrong. All right, so now if we see that 1.0.2, we can update it. And that's it. So that is how you integrate the Kernel with GitHub. This is the same process for any Git integration, so Bitbucket or GitLab. And there's a bunch of other things you can do with it. You can have automated change logs, you can ignore files, and things like that. But this is the basic version. It should get you started. If you need more help, docs.kernl.us has extensive documentation on this. And as always, feel free to reach out to jack@kernl.us if you have any questions. Thanks.